Imagine a world without names. A world where the majestic Colorado River is merely that water, and the awe-inspiring Everest is just that mountain. Names, the labels we give to the world around us, are not merely identifiers, but the building blocks of our reality. They shape our perceptions, our interactions, and even our history. This essay unravels the fascinating journey of how humans, from the primal echoes of cavemen to the sophisticated echoes of modernity, began the complex process of naming objects, creatures, places, and each other. The roots of naming stretch back to the very dawn of humanity. Early humans, faced with a burgeoning world full of novel threats and opportunities, found an urgent need to communicate effectively. The development of names was a crucial evolutionary step, enabling not just identification of objects and beings, but also the transmission of complex concepts and emotions across generations. Evidence of early naming practices is sparse but suggestive. Ancient artifacts, cave paintings, and primitive tools often carry marks or symbols, possibly indicating early forms of names or ownership. This nascent form of communication highlighted the cognitive leap humans were making, from mere survival to a structured understanding of their environment. The importance of naming in human evolution cannot be overstated. It was the cornerstone upon which language was built, paving the way for the complex societies we live in today. Language is not just a means of communication, but a framework for thought. The development of naming was pivotal in this aspect, influencing how early humans thought and interacted with their surroundings. Neurolinguistics offers insights into how naming shapes cognitive processes. The act of naming activates specific areas in the brain, suggesting a deep-seated neural basis for categorization and identity. This reveals that naming was not just a social tool, but a fundamental part of human cognitive development. Moreover, the evolution of language and the ability to name things provided a scaffolding for abstract thinking and problem-solving. It allowed our ancestors not only to describe the world, but to imagine and plan for possibilities beyond their immediate reality. In the cradle of civilization, names were more than mere labels. They encapsulated history, culture, and spirituality. The Sumerians, one of the earliest civilizations, had a complex system of names for their gods, each reflecting a specific aspect of life or nature. Similarly, the Egyptians named their pharaohs with epithets that promised eternal life and divine favor. The Indus Valley civilization, known for its advanced urban planning, used seals possibly as a form of identity for trade and administration. These examples illustrate how integral names were in reflecting and shaping the societal structures and beliefs of ancient cultures. Names in these civilizations were not static. They evolved with society. They were deeply intertwined with the myths and religious practices, serving as a bridge between the divine and the earthly, the mystical and the practical. The ancient Greeks were profoundly interested in the concepts of essence and existence, and their philosophies often delved into the significance of names. Plato, in his dialogues, suggested that knowing the name of something provides an understanding of its true nature. Aristotle, on the other hand, argued that names are essential for categorizing and reasoning about the world. These philosophical discussions were not mere intellectual exercises, they had practical implications. They influenced how societies thought about and interacted with everything from the natural world to human roles. Names, according to these philosophers, were foundational in constructing reality and making sense of the universe's complexities. This philosophical perspective on naming highlights a key point. Names are not merely arbitrary labels but are deeply embedded in our understanding of the world. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, names hold profound theological significance. The act of naming was divine, as seen when God named the day and night, the earth and the skies in the creation narratives. Furthermore, Adam naming the animals was a demonstration of dominion and understanding, an act that established mankind's role as God's steward on earth. Names in biblical tales often carried specific meanings that foretold destiny or character. For example, The name Moses means to pull out, draw out, referring to his story of being drawn from the river. This practice reflects a broader tradition where names are seen as encapsulating a part of the individual's identity and fate. This theological approach to naming illustrates how names in various cultures are not just practical identifiers, but are imbued with expectations, hopes, and divine connections. They are a key element in the narrative structure of religious texts, providing depth and context to the stories they tell. Throughout history, names have been tools of power and control. Rulers and conquerors have often changed the names of places and people to assert dominance and reshape cultural identities. For instance, during the Roman Empire, conquered cities were frequently renamed to wipe clean previous cultural memories and impose Roman identity and authority. This practice was not limited to ancient times. In the modern era, colonial powers often renamed parts of their empires, both to ease administration and to assert control. The renaming of New Amsterdam to New York by the British is a prominent example, reflecting the change in control from Dutch to British hands. The power of names extends into personal identity as well. The act of renaming oneself or being renamed can signify freedom from oppression or a transformation of identity, as seen in narratives of enslaved individuals choosing new names upon emancipation. Names, therefore, are not just identifiers but are potent symbols of authority, identity, and resistance. The Renaissance, a period of rebirth of classical knowledge and ideals, saw a revival of Greek and Roman names in literature and art. This revival was not just a stylistic choice but a deliberate connection to the philosophies, aesthetics, and civic ideals of ancient civilizations. Artists and scholars of the Renaissance such as Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo adopted classical techniques and themes, which included the use of names with deep historical and cultural connotations. This practice reflected a broader cultural movement that sought to align contemporary works with the revered traditions of the past. The impact of this naming revival was profound, influencing not just art and literature but also the naming of individuals. It became fashionable to name children after heroic figures from classical mythology and history, as these names were associated with virtues and qualities admired in society. In many Native American and Aboriginal Australian cultures, names are deeply spiritual and linked to the natural world. These names often come from a tradition where a person's name is a reflection of their soul and destiny, and can change over the course of their life to reflect personal growth and life experiences. For example, in some Native American tribes, names are given in a ceremony that considers cosmic signs and the child's characteristics observed by elders. These names are more than mere labels. They carry stories, duties, and the power to influence both the individual and the community. Moreover, in Aboriginal Australian cultures, naming is often connected to the land and ancestral stories. Names can describe geographic features, recount histories, or embody spiritual teachings. This shows how in many native cultures, names are integral to maintaining the link between the community, the land, and the spiritual world, serving as a vital component of cultural identity and continuity. The Age of Enlightenment, a period marked by an emphasis on reason and individualism, significantly influenced naming conventions. Philosophers such as John Locke and Immanuel Kant explored the relationship between names, identity, and self-awareness, arguing that names help form the basis of individual rights and societal laws. Locke in particular discussed personal identity and consciousness, suggesting that the ability to name and classify our experiences is central to self-awareness and knowledge. Kant further expanded on these ideas, emphasizing that names help us categorize and make sense of the complex world around us, thus facilitating critical and abstract thinking. This philosophical shift also influenced the scientific sphere, where the classification and naming of elements, plants, and animals became crucial. The systematic naming conventions in biology, developed by Carl Linnaeus, are a direct outcome of Enlightenment thinking emphasizing order, clarity, and universality in naming. The Industrial Revolution brought about profound changes in society, including how things were named. The emergence of factories, machinery, and new technologies led to the creation of brand names and trademarks, which became essential as manufacturers sought to distinguish their products in a growing market. This era saw the rise of brand names like Coca-Cola and Ford, names that not only identified the product but also conveyed a certain image or quality. These names became synonymous with innovation and reliability, influencing consumer behavior and loyalty. Furthermore, the Industrial Revolution also transformed the urban landscape, leading to the naming and renaming of streets and districts based on new industrial and commercial activities. This period exemplified how technological and economic changes directly influence naming conventions, reflecting broader social transformations. The 20th century was marked by global conflicts and significant social changes, which had a profound impact on naming conventions. World wars led to the renaming of cities and regions, often as a result of political shifts. For instance, the city of Tsaritsyn was renamed Stalingrad, in honor of Stalin during the Soviet era, only to be later renamed Volgograd as part of de-Stalinization. Political movements and independence from colonial rule also led to a reclamation of native names as newly independent nations sought to restore their cultural heritage and assert their sovereignty. Countries like Ceylon reverting to Sri Lanka and Rhodesia to Zimbabwe are notable examples. This century also saw the rise of naming rights in sports and entertainment, with corporations paying significant sums to attach their names to stadiums and arenas. This commodification of naming rights reflects the increasing intertwining of commerce, culture, and identity in the modern world. In the contemporary era, naming conventions have continued to evolve with changes in society and technology. The rise of the internet and digital technologies has led to new forms of naming, such as domain names, which are crucial for online identity and commerce. Globalization has also influenced naming practices, with parents more frequently choosing names that are easily pronounced and recognized internationally. This reflects a broader cultural shift towards more globally interconnected identities. Moreover, the modern sensitivity towards inclusivity and diversity has impacted how institutions name buildings, awards, and other entities, often leading to renaming in an effort to reflect contemporary values and recognize historically marginalized communities. As we move further into the 21st century, the conventions of naming are likely to undergo even more transformations, particularly with the development of artificial intelligence and other advanced technologies. Names may become more functional, serving as unique identifiers in vast networks of data. Ethical considerations will also become increasingly important. The potential for AI to name itself or to create new names for products and concepts raises questions about the role of human creativity and the preservation of cultural heritage in naming practices. Predicting the future of naming entails understanding these technological and ethical dimensions, acknowledging that names will continue to be at the forefront of our interaction with the world, shaping our reality in profound ways. The journey of naming, from the primal utterances of our ancestors to the sophisticated digital tags of today, is a mirror reflecting our evolutionary, cultural, and technological advancements. Names are more than just labels. They are a fundamental aspect of our existence, encapsulating history, power, identity, and technology. As we continue to innovate and evolve, the way we name things will inevitably adapt, but the core function of names, to communicate, to signify, to endow with meaning, will remain. Understanding the evolution of naming is understanding a key aspect of humanity itself, a pursuit that is as endlessly fascinating as it is essential. This exploration of the naming game from cavemen to modernity reveals not only how we have named the world but also how those names have shaped the very world we live in.